You've had such a close relationship with Scott, and you talk about being given opportunities in TNA, and he was one of the guys who gave you a lot of those opportunities. Does him leaving TNA play a factor in you wanting to be a free agent?
Somewhat. Like when I first found out, he was like, "Oh, I teared up. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was thinking about these last 6 or 5 years at the time I had in TNA, and everything along the way from like when I started, having zero relationship with him, other than he was the guy that got me a visa and was giving me this opportunity, to this point where we developed this relationship of trust, and he coached me along and gave me so much help and put me with the right people to make sure that I was leveling up like my skills along the way, from storytelling and promos to in-ring wrestling and stuff like that. Just putting me with these certain people that he didn't have to, but he knew it would benefit me. And then leaving, like, you got to think, like, we were ride or die for this guy. Like, the entire locker room was like, especially with the rebranding of TNA thing happening, at the end of BFG, and then the debut of TNA, we're like riding high. We just sold out the Palms. These shows were insane.
Yeah.
And then it felt like the rug was just pulled out from under you, right? So it's like, how do you react to that? How do you feel about that? And like the relationship we've built, I was just like, man, I'm losing a mentor, and that sucks. But it's also the wrestling business. So like, I can't say like it's 100% the reason why I'm thinking about free agency. I would have thought of free agency regardless. And I kind of, Scott, when we negotiated my 3-year deal that I signed, to keep me there up until this February, he told me, he was just like, you're either going to be worth so much I can't keep you at the end of this, or I'm going to make sure you get paid to stay here. Like, but you're going to be worth much more because I know what you're capable of. And that was kind of like the thing we sat on when I signed that deal. It's
so crazy, bizarre, ridiculous to think that he was the guy who was championing TNA. Then TNA, we're effing back, right? That whole very passionate promo. Hard to Kill is incredible. And then it's like a month later.
No, it's like 2 weeks later.
2 weeks later. 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah.
And just from the outside looking in, it doesn't add up.
Yeah. And like, that's a business conversation that is well over my pay grade. And I don't understand the inner workings of it from a wrestling perspective, from like, being the guy that it has to be accountable for this roster and this production team and all this stuff, the ins and outs. I mean, I saw the guy work 20-hour days every day for years.
And he has another job on top of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I don't know how he does it. Like I'm dead from Monday to Thursday before I leave for shows. I am a dead body at home. My children take up all my time and energy outside of the workouts I have to do every day. And I'm just spent doing that. So I couldn't imagine, but like, it's wrestling, management, business, all this stuff. Bosses change, they come and go. I think like you can't say that like TNA hasn't done great things this year since the changeover. I was skeptical when it first happened. I had a meeting with them to talk about, maybe not picking up my option for the year, because I was just kind of uncomfortable not knowing, these new people that were going to be my boss and like what their ideas were. But they picked up the option, and like you're talking about like record houses this year. Like business is up. More people tuning in. You got the ascension of Joe Hendry coming in. The Hardy Boys are back, like tearing it up. Like you can't say they haven't done great stuff. Like Ariel, Anthony, Gail, Tommy, this entire, new team that's kind of taken over since Scott left. They've done great too. So
one of the great things about Scott is he was able to wear a lot of hats. And like, he told me this great story of like when they needed to kill time, he would just go out there and cut a promo. And after your match with Ospreay, he was told, like, we got like 4 minutes to kill. Go out there.
Yeah.
So what are you doing? So the match is over. You guys are doing your thing after the match. And out of nowhere, here comes Scott down the ramp. What are you thinking? What's going on here?
No, I absolutely knew what was going on. As we're going home in the match, like the final like 4 to 5 minutes, in my head, I'm going, we're going early. 100% we're going early. And I'm trying to think of a way to communicate it to Will to like do something else so we can buy time and fill that time. And then we get so deep and the crowd's so hot that like doing anything ad-libbed would just sacrifice everything we've been building to. So I was just like, whatever, I'll cut a promo afterwards. It'll be fine. And like in my head, I'm just like, I'll cut a promo. I'll put over Will. I'll put over TNA, like all this stuff. Basically kind of the gist of what Scott did. But like we go home. We're sitting there. I'm about to like get up and ask for the microphone. Scott's music hits. He comes out and I go, this guy is stealing my thunder right now. Like in my head, because I knew it was happening. But I'm so glad he did because I'm wearing long sleeves, but I have goosebumps right now just thinking about it, man. That guy got in the ring and off the cuff cut this insanely passionate promo that had me like welling up and goosebumped in the ring for how passionate he was about TNA being back. And just like the amount of like hype that was around these shows and how happy he was that we've gotten back to this point where because like he wanted TNA back for years.
Yeah.
And it was just like an uphill battle of being like, people are going to think tits and ass or something, or you know what I mean? Like it's a dead brand. And you're like, and I don't think everybody in the business side understood, like when I was crossing the border weekly to fly out to a show, I'd be like, I'm a wrestler. Like, oh yeah, for who? And I'll be like, Impact Wrestling. I go, huh? And I'd be like, have you ever heard of TNA? And they go, oh yeah. Like the brand recognition alone, just based off the border guards was like enough for me to be like, let's bring TNA back. But
there were a lot of fans that didn't call it TNA or didn't call it Impact. It was still TNA for all those years to them.
Oh, I had to catch myself doing media for years being like, cause like I would talk about the stuff I was a fan of and I'd say TNA, but then I'm only a part of Impact. So I don't know if it's the same thing. So yeah.